عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. خير ما نستهل به ندوتنا آيات من الذكر الحكيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. صدق الله العظيم. الكلمة الآن لراعي هذه الندوة سعادة مدير عام مطار الملك عبد العزيز الدولي الأستاذ عبد الحميد بن حماد أبو العلي، فليتفضل مشكورا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. أيها الأخوة الحضور، يسرني في هذا اليوم المبارك ونيابة عن صاحب السمو رئيس الهيئة العامة للقطاع المدني الأمير خالد بن عبد الله ومعالي نائبه البروفيسور بالحمد الصغير، وبالأصالة عن نفسي وعن إدارة مطار الملك عبد العزيز الدولي في جدة أن أرحب بالأخوة الحضور من الهيئة العامة للقطاع المدني والزملاء الذين حضروا من كافة الأجهزة الحكومية والكافة العامة للمطار والضيوف الذين قدموا للحضور والمشاركة في هذه الندوة. كما أود أن أرحب ترحيبا خاصا بالشركة السعودية للأوزون برعاية رئيس مجلس إدارتها صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير عبد العزيز بن عبد العزيز صاحبة هذه المبادرة الداعية لعقد هذه الندوة المتخصصة في مجال استخدام تقنية الأوزون للحفاظ على المحيط البيئي والصحي للإنسان، خصوصا في المواقع التي تتسم بالكثافة البشرية كالمطارات والمراكز التجارية والتسويقية. وبهذا الصدد يسرني أن أعبر عن شكري لكل من سعى وعمل لتنظيم هذا الملتقى للتعريف بهذه التقنية والتي قد يسمع بها الكثير ولكن لم يسبر أغوارها ويصل إلى حقيقتها ومعرفة أبعادها إلى القليل. أيها الأخوة الحضور، يقول الله عز وجل: ولنبلونكم بالشر والخير فتنة وإلينا ترجعون. وفي الحديث الصحيح يقول المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم: ما أنزل الله داء إلا وأنزل له شفاء، وفي رواية إلا وله دواء علمه من علمه وجهله من جهله. أيها الأخوة الزملاء، إنما اشتملت عليه الآية الكريمة وقول المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم يفتتح أمامنا آفاقا ملؤها الأمل والتفاؤل حينما تصيبنا الابتلاءات وتحل بنا الفتن. أيها الإخوة، إن ما حصل في بلادنا خلال الأشهر الماضية من ظهور فيروس كورونا وقبله في السنوات الماضية من أمراض تنقلها بعض الفيروسات مثل حمى الضنك والوادي المتصدع وانفلونزا الخنازير وغيرها من الأمراض، وما سببه فيروس كورونا مؤخرا من قلق على مستوى المجتمع والعالم بأسره، هي بلا شك أزمة جعلت أجهزة الدولة ممثلة في مراكز ومستشفيات وزارة الصحة والجهات الطبية الأخرى للعمل بشكل متسارع على إيجاد نظم للعلاج واللقاحات المضادة لهذا الفيروس الخطير وسبل القضاء على انتشاره بعد أن حققت أرقام الإصابة به مستويات مقلقة. وعلى صعيد الوقاية كانت هناك جهود أخرى تقوم بها جهات متخصصة حكومية وبعضها تتبع للقطاع الخاص تعمل بشكل دؤوب وسريع لاستشراف الطرق والبدائل الممكنة التي تتيح فرصة الحد من انتشار تلك الفيروسات في بيئة العيش والعمل داخل المجتمع. ومن ضمن هذه المساعي الحديثة ظهرت المبادرة الداعية لاستخدام تقنية الأوزون كأحد الوسائل العلمية والطبية التي أثبتت بعض النجاحات في القطاعات الصناعية لتحقيق مستوى النقاء والسلامة للحفاظ على الهواء والماء من تسلل الفيروسات والطفيليات الناقلة للأمراض للإنسان. واليوم يسعد مطار الملك عبد العزيز بأن يستضيف على أرضه ندوة استخدام تقنية الأوزون للحد من انتشار الفيروسات بمبادرة وتعاون مثمر ومشترك بين الهيئة العامة للطيران المدني والشركة السعودية للأوزون، وبمشاركة نخبة من الخبراء والمتخصصين الذين يلقون الضوء على جوانب هذه التقنية وتطبيقاتها المختلفة ومدى إمكانية نجاحها واستخدامها في المطارات. أيها الأخوة، كلنا أمل بأن يكون مطار المؤسس كما كان تاريخيا هو الانطلاقة الأولى لصناعة الطيران المدني بالمملكة، أن يكون كذلك القاعدة الأولى التي تنطلق منها المبادرات العلمية والبحثية التي تخدم الجوانب البيئية والحفاظ على الصحة، والتي هي جزء لا يتجزأ من رسالة الهيئة العامة للطيران المدني في تقديم خدمة نقل جوي آمنة وسالمة للمسافرين ومرتادي المطارات. أيها الأخوة الحضور، إن إدارة مطارات الملك عبد العزيز تتمنى أن تكلل هذه الجهود من خلال هذه الندوة للنجاح والتوفيق، وأن نخرج بنتائج إيجابية ملموسة من الممكن أن تساعدنا في الحفاظ على بيئة صحية نظيفة ونقية وسليمة من الأخطار تحمي سلامة ركابنا وتحافظ من خلالها على منشآتنا، لا سيما ونحن نقترب بتسارع مع الزمن من الانتهاء من المشروع العملاق لمطار المؤسس، وكل هدفنا وتطلعاتنا ونحو الارتقاء بمطاراتنا إلى مصاف العالمية وتجاوز المعايير الدولية القياسية لمواصلة السير على درب مسيرة النماء والرخاء الذي تقودها حكومة هذا البلد المعطاء بقيادة رائد نهضتنا والد الجميع خادم الحرمين الشريفين الملك عبد الله بن عبد العزيز، أمد الله في عمره وأنعم عليه بالصحة والعافية. أرجو للجميع التوفيق والسداد. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الكلمة الآن لسعادة نائب رئيس مجلس الإدارة الشركة السعودية للأوزون، فليتفضل الأستاذ هشام بن مليك فليتفضل مشكورا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سعادة مدير عام مطار الملك عبد العزيز الدولي أستاذ عبد الحميد حماد أبلي، ضيوفنا الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية نشكر سمو رئيس هيئة الطيران المدني على موافقة سموه على عقد هذا الملتقى التعاوني عن تقنيات وتطبيقات الأوزون التي تعقد بمشاركة خبراء عالميين مختصين بهذا المجال. ولا شك أن استضافة هذا الملتقى يكتسب أهمية قصوى في ظل المعطيات والتحولات المتسارعة التي تواجه المملكة والمنطقة، ومنها الفيروسات المسببة للأمراض والأوبئة. الضيوف الكرام، إن هذا الملتقى يستشرف آفاق تقنيات الأوزون واستخداماته المتعددة، ومنها على سبيل المثال تعقيم الهواء والماء والغذاء وغيرها. ويشكل هذا الملتقى منظومة مشتركة بين الجهات الحكومية والقطاع الخاص ليؤكد أهمية تبادل الخبرات والأفكار والمعلومات بما يساهم في تحقيق الأهداف العامة. في الختام لا يسع لي إلا أن أشيد بجهود مطار عام مدير عام مطار الملك عبد العزيز الدولي والقطاعات الحكومية وشركات القطاع الخاص المشاركة في هذا الملتقى، وبالله التوفيق.
المحاضرة المالي الشركة السعودية للأوزون.
Ozone exists naturally and has an important role in the human life, where it blocks ultraviolet sunlight in the outer layers of the atmosphere that harms the living cells. Ozone is produced during thunderstorms, where it functions to make the environment healthier. Ozone is a colorless gas, and its symbol is O3 because it consists of 3 atoms of oxygen. In addition, it's an unstable gas and can't be preserved. It should be used as it's produced. Its molecular instability and highly oxidization ability makes it beneficial in organic compounds, where it deforms the cellular membranes of bacteria, fungi, and unicellular organisms, which can cause salmonella. Ozone can also be beneficial in inorganic compounds in water, where it causes minerals precipitation and insects elimination. After oxidation, it totally converts in 30 to 60 minutes to oxygen, which makes the area treated with ozone sanitation completely free of contamination and full odor. Ozone discovery was officially revealed in a research conducted in 1840 by the chemist Christian Friedrich Schönbein. Today, the US Food and Drug Administration, FDA, acknowledges ozone as sound diet supplement for human health. In addition, Italian Ministry of Health uses it in sterilization of natural environments contaminated by bacteria, viruses, spores, and mites. Indoors environment is 100 times more contaminated than outdoor environment. There are multiple sources of contamination, including furniture, carpets, moquette, pets, plants, flowers, and more, which you find at home, offices, etc. The most important factor that contributes in rot formation is moist. Bad odors can rise from smoking, cooking, and toilet seat. Water is an essential component in life, which forms 30%, not just for drinking, but also the water used in cooking food, which forms the remaining 70%. In big cities nowadays, and especially cities with water network that draws from rivers, so it's recommended to process these waters with ozone rather than chlorine, as it doesn't leave toxic precipitation nor changes water taste. Infectious diseases transmitted by food is an increasing problem, and its source can be restricted in consuming contaminated products, but also the food intake, which was in direct contact with contaminated surfaces in kitchens. More than 90% of dioxin that the human body contacts with is animal source food, which we consume, as well as transferring pesticides, precipitations, which is especially toxic and relates to hepatitis that is responsible of hundreds of thousands deaths every year. Let's look at the numbers. 1, there are 248 organic food toxicity pollutant epicenter in Italy. 2, number of persons that die due to organic toxics in industrial countries reaches 30% every year. 3, organic food toxicity cases related to salmonella reaches to 45%. And 4, cases of contaminated food diseases from kitchen origin reaches to 35%. Large number of surfaces which we contact with daily makes a perfect shelter to these unwelcome guests that form a great danger to our health and comfort. Let's take mobile phones, for example. As we know, they can't be sterilized and washed easily, therefore that bacteria nests, and where bacteria continue to live and move to skin, hands, ears, and mouths. Also, there are a lot of places that harbor multiple types of insects like beetles in storages where they attack grains, flour, beans, dried fruits, and multiple seeds. There are also mites known as dust mites, which nest in bed sheets, carpets, moquette, and other furnitures, rather than another type of mites that infects plant source food. There are also infecting insects which make from paper, fur, wood, fabrics, a refugee. In addition, roaches which reproduce in warm and moist weather can transport large number of microscopic creatures that transmit multiple diseases. For all these reasons, Saudi Ozone Corporation worked until it possessed ozone rapid and portable sanitation devices, which is characterized with rapid processing in airplane cabinets, cars, restaurants, schools, and places which need sterilization and decontamination from germs, viruses, suspended and mobile bacteria. These technologies depend on specific ratio of ozone gas, which converts in 15 to 30 minutes after ozone sanitation and elimination of germs and viruses to pure oxygen.
Thank you for your attention. Now, with Professor Saad Shazim, Expert Techniques, Ozone State of Canada, and a member of the World Federation of Ozone and Environmental Consultant in the United States.
Assalamu alaikum. It's given me a great pleasure to be here today to make this presentation, and I appreciate the support given by the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the other agencies and all the groups involved, the private sector and academia and other groups in this region. The title of this presentation is Ozone Proven Solution for Emerging Challenges, because we get new challenges every time. The time we think we solve one problem, we find out there is another one. We need to deal with it. Ozone is a well-known powerful oxidizer and has been known for more than a century about the capability of killing microorganisms. Applications have been widely known in water and wastewater, and they start to get traction from many societies to keep a good quality of life and good health status for the public. And many of the big cities and in modern countries have been using it. Paris, London, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, Boston. That's one of the many countries we're using. In Canada, we have Toronto, Montreal, Windsor. Many of the countries that they know that this is one of the good ways of maintaining good health to people rather than waiting until the health problems start to accumulate. And it will be more costly to deal with that in the future. This is a simple way to show how ozone is formed and how it reacts. Oxygen molecule is it's broken by an electric charge. We break it into two atoms of oxygen. And those atoms of oxygen become very active, and they attach themselves to another molecule of oxygen, so it becomes O3. And this is a very unstable gas. And because it's unstable, it's very reactive. The more stable the gas, the more unreactive it is. So that's why ozone is very active compared to oxygen, and it's heavier, of course. Molecular weight is 48 compared to the oxygen, 36. That's why ozone settles on the lower level in the room when it happens. That's why even when they have ozone, when they build ducts, they build the ducts to serve the head to be at the lower level in order to pull the ozone not at the higher level. And this is how it's formed in nature. When you have thunder and lightning happens and it breaks the molecules of oxygen to form ozone. That's why you smell the fresh smell after thunderstorms and all that. Advantages of ozone, I'm going to try to move fast because we have only limited time. So I hope I'll be able to answer many questions as much as I can afterwards. Advantages of ozone. There's a long list of advantages of ozone. This is just a good list of that as a disinfectant. It's being replacing many of other disinfectants because it's more powerful and produce a good result and a shorter contact time. And this is significant in big cities. And instead of building a huge reactor, you can reduce it by 3-4 times, if not even more, because ozone reacts much faster than chlorine, over 80 times, even for log inactivation of Giardia, which is one of the parasites. Bacteria is much easier, and viruses are much easier to be dealt with ozone. The PPCBs, what are those? Those are the pharmaceuticals and personal care products, which I'm going to be talking about later. And that is effective in drinking water treatment and wastewater. Taste and odor control, that's been a significant use for ozone in many of the warm countries, because with warm temperature you produce algae, and the algae will be producing taste and odor issues. Improving treatment processes, we found that a significant way that when ozone is used, it reduces the other chemicals used. And that's why you save economically on chemical use, and also you reduce the maintenance, the processes. Triamethane, this is one of the carcinogens produced by chlorine when it reacts with organics. When ozone is used for primary disinfection, it reacts with the organics forming those. So when you add chlorine before it gets into the distribution system, you don't form that triamethanes. We have a paper just being accepted now. We're looking at reviewing the level of triamethanes in a city after using 10 years of ozone. And we saw the decline from 60 to almost a single digit most of the time. The elevated level of dissolved oxygen, that's very useful when you deal with the wastewater, especially when it goes afterwards to the lakes and rivers. And the advantage, it decomposes back to oxygen, and that's an important thing. The ozone safety advantage, you hear, and I read that in the papers and on Twitter, some people write, okay, ozone is dangerous and all that. I'll tell you officially, there is no fatality in ozone applications worldwide until now. That's not the same with chlorine or others, because ozone decomposes to oxygen. And also, the ozone generators are built when there is a leak, when it reaches a certain level, it shuts down the generator automatically and will not restart until the level goes down. Another advantage, ozone is not explosive or flammable, and that's why you see more use lately because of the people are comfortable with that. This table shows you, this is one of the data we use, and that's been approved in British Columbia in Canada, and basically we use it in Canada, United States. We follow this, and you see the levels of ozone. Basically, 0.01, 0.04, you start to smell it. And this is outside. When you have thunderstorms and all that, in fact, the production of ozone is even higher. The levels is being added here. You see here the level of 10 ppm. And this is, rarely you see that. Like when we use it for water, drinking water, or wastewater is way less than that. For drinking water is about 2 milligrams per liter or 2 parts per billion, per million or less. Expected to be fatal because we, as indicated, we didn't see anybody we didn't have any fatality until now, which is good. And that is if you get 50 ppm for 30 minutes. And that is when somebody smells the ozone, usually it's better to leave the room, and that's what we advise the people what to do. So ozon's become a dominant in water treatment, and many people start to use it as indicated in Europe, North America. North America followed Europe in that, as indicated. France, Germany, they've been leading into the applications. United States started. In Canada, Quebec been using it, in fact, from the late 50s. Because of their links with France, they started to implement these applications. These are the PPCBs and the EDCs. PPCBs is the pharmaceuticals and personal care products, and the EDCs are the endocrine disruptors compounds. And this is a potential and emerging problem now because we have a continuing addition into the ecosystem of these compounds. When we take pills, the body takes only 25 to 30%, the rest goes as waste. It goes to the wastewater treatment plants. Wastewater treatment plants are not equipped to deal with these compounds, so it finds itself back into the rivers and the lakes. And if your drinking water system is not equipped by a strong oxidizer like ozone, you will have it in your bottle of water or glass of water. What does that do? The studies show that there is, in fact, the studies we find on fish, because why they looked at fish, the scientists, because looking at fish is easier than looking at a human being, and unfortunately, it's the cost as well. The cost of study for epidemiology or toxicology on a human being, it's years and years of data you need. On fish, because of life cycle, it's about a year or two, so scientists visit these labs, they put tanks with water, fresh water, clean, no pharmaceuticals, and tanks with the pharmaceuticals in it. And they found some amazing things. The shape of the fish start slightly to change. The male fish, the head become more round like the female fish. And also the more problem they found, they saw the male fish start to develop eggs and develop the organs, the female organs. And that's what they call it, feminization of fish. Some studies in England, they found that there are some impact on human beings, but it's still limited because they don't have enough data. These data start to generate in the last 15 years only. They found out that in males, that the number of active sperms start to reduce when they have high level of pharmaceuticals and endocrine disruptors. All these things, it make us look at suspicious about the situation and how to deal with it. And that's how science deal with that. Where do these compounds come from? And if you look at, that's a good example given by the EPA in the United States. This one is, like, first one is you have the, if you have animal farms. And we use currently worldwide a lot of antibiotics and steroids sometimes to make the cows get bigger and healthier and to provide a better economic outcome. Unfortunately, cows or other animals are the same like human beings. They use some of these compounds and the rest comes as a waste. And many of the farms which I visited, they put that in the water that the animals drink. And that is a concern, because that will find its way at the end to the ecosystem. Also, from houses, some people flush their medication in the toilet, or even, the human waste that goes in the toilet is heavy with these pharmaceuticals. That goes into the groundwater, and that's another issue, because it starts to develop and accumulate. It's not in circulation. And you see here the effluent from wastewater plants ends in the lakes and rivers. And many of the lakes and rivers, they are the same location. You have the source and the intake pipe for the drinking water. And the city where I came from in Canada, the intake for the drinking water plant is downstream from the sewage discharge of the same city. When they built it, the left hand didn't know what the right hand is doing. And that goes back in the 20s and 30s. And these are some of the data that shows the level of these compounds. You see a long list of these compounds, and near the discharge of the sewage treatment plant. And also, when you decompose the sludge to send it back to be used as fertilizer and others, you have these pharmaceuticals in that. So basically, you're putting it back on soil. The plants will absorb that, and we eat it again. So it's a circle which is not a good one. What do these compounds do? Some of the impact on microorganisms and also plants, algae, and start to, some of them develop some kind of immunity to some of the medication. We hear a lot about the antibiotic resistance bacteria, and that's because of those. Reproduction growth will start to change with certain animals when it comes to that. So you see that impact is becoming an issue of concern. Discharge of the wastewater treatment plant is considered a major source for these compounds, and start to become an issue that the governments start to look at seriously. Last year, the United States government, their agency, environment agency, the EPA, they put $1 billion for research and improvement for the Great Lakes. Because for them, the Great Lakes is an important source of water. It's 20% of the world's fresh water. So, and they found, in fact, we did the study about how many wastewater plants discharge into the Great Lakes. Between Canada and the United States, more than 1,000 plants discharge into the Great Lakes. And that is a concern. And that is unfortunately everywhere in the world. There is something like that. So, how do the pharmaceuticals and endocrine disruptors work? This is a study shows how these compounds go to the receptor and they block it. Basically, it changed the reaction of the effector, we call it. So either gives a wrong signal, the enzymes in the body start to get higher, or stop giving. And that's why you see people have problems like thyroids and others. And that leads also to cancer situations. And this is a serious issue here. Even we're talking about parts per trillion, nanograms per liter. These small amounts makes a difference. Antibiotic resistance, that report came out, in fact, last month. The World Health Organization indicated that in the data they have in 114 countries, it looks at that the antibiotic resistance is a major problem in 114 countries. This report was released only last month. And they looked at that as a problem, a major problem. And you see outbreaks of disease in hospitals. Hospitals are quarantined because of that, because they don't lose control on the bacteria and the viruses in the hospitals. Why should we get concerned? We should be concerned because these things is everywhere. It has an impact on the public, on the ecosystem, on the future generation, because this is a growing thing, because this is not like a bacteria. When you have an E. coli in your body, certain strains of the E. coli, you get sick quickly. But chronically, with these compounds, you see the effect after 10, 20 years, maybe longer. But then, the recovery is too difficult, because your body has changed. Effects on wildlife in Lake St. Clair, near the Canadian side, they found fish with eggs in them. And that's local. That was done about 10 years ago, they found. There are a lot of studies going at the University of Waterloo in Ontario on that, and it's becoming an issue of concern. And in the United States and Canada, the United States, in fact, in 2002, they did a study, they released it they looked at 80 sites, and never failed. All sites were full of these compounds. All these sites were found, no site was clean. And that is normal, unfortunately, because of the way everybody is doing things. So how to deal with these things? Ozone has been found can deal with these problems. One of the things we need to look at, there is no silver bullet, and it doesn't work everywhere the same way. That's why, because water quality is different from one site to the other. Temperature has an important role, pH, alkalinity, all these factors play a role on the impact in the treatment. So sometimes you see ozone or ozone with hydrogen peroxide, which we call it advanced oxidation. And we did some studies, and we have it published, and shows the impact of these oxidants. You can remove 90% or more. And what I'm talking about, when you have nanogram per liter part per trillion, and you remove 95%, that's a great achievement. And this is some of the data showed by use of ozone removal in a sewage discharge. They did that study near Colorado. Dr. Shane Snyder, he's one of the leaders in the ozone studies. He did that, and it is amazing. You see the removal amount. They did pilot study and also one of the treatment plants. They looked at pilot and full scale to do that, and bench scale. And to compare, of course, the pilot mimics more the full scale more than the bench scale. For drinking water, I'm just going to go back. This is a data show you directly the impact of ozone. We put the lower level here, you see a target of 90 or 99%, it depends on different time of the year, removal of parasites, which is cryptosporidium. And we saw the removal, and those are actual data and calculation from one of the sites. And we saw the removal by viruses here. It's over 30%, 30 login activations. What does that mean? You're talking about 99.28 nines after that. It's like 100%. Because in science, sometimes you don't put the 100% because statistically they don't do that. But this one shows how powerful ozone is. That's why when you deal with bacteria and parasites are more difficult compared to the viruses for ozone. And also here, when we looked at the Detroit River, Detroit River is known one of the most polluted rivers in Canada and the United States. Because you have industry pumping into the discharge, auto industry, sewage treatment plants. There are sewage treatment plants unfortunately on the Michigan side. More than 1 billion gallons of untreated sewage goes out when there is a heavy rain, because they don't have the economical capability to rebuild or advance the system. When you see here, these are you see the yellow blocks here. This is the removal when you use ozone. And here, the navy blocks, these are the conventional. So you compare 20 to 30% to over 90%, which is better. I think you don't need to think too much about it. We did a study also in a place, Walkerton. The people who work in the water industry heard about that. That's where 7 people died and 2,300 people were sick in a town of only 4,800 people. Half of the city were sick. They were start moving by helicopters, and the government stepped in. So the government invested in building a research facility there, and I got the privilege in being in charge of that. So we built a system to do studies. And this is a good investment. Will go for 20 years or more using a system like that. So what we used to do, we go and see what cities they have problems. We take their water, we bring it, and we have big tanks, and we fill it up, and we do this study online, and we do a control site versus the one we do the changes, and we see how the difference is. And that is a dual train pilot plant here, what you see, and the red buttons here shows that there's where we take samples from. This is the ozone system we built, and you see how sophisticated and detailed, because we want to go into good details. Because if you want to do research, you need to go all the way. And one of the studies here received the best paper published 2009 and 2010. It was on the removal of pharmaceuticals using advanced oxidation in one of the Great Lakes. And this is the pilot system, the research facility. We looked at these target compounds. And we looked at like herbicides, blood lipid control. Like we see a lot of that. One of the cartoons in one of the newspapers came out. Somebody went to the doctor and they said, "How I have this problem, this problem." He said, "Drink 3 glasses of water." because you have all this medication in it. You have Prozac, Lipitor, you have cholesterol, you have medication for blood pressure, because those are the amounts that people use more. And ibuprofen you find it all the time. And something else we don't think about, caffeine. Caffeine is always in water. People think that they say you don't drink coffee. They do, indirectly. They have it when they drink the water. There's always a trace of caffeine in the water. And your system starts to build. But when you use ozone, it removes all that. That's what we found present in the water. Different compounds, and varies at different times of the year. Why? Because when you have heavy rain, it washes especially the agriculture area, and this area where we did, it's agriculture and animal farms. It washes these compounds into the lakes. So we did a study, we compared, and you see here the level of removal of the one that's using ozone versus the other one, the two ones here, that the removal is very poor and below 20% compared to the 90 and 100% with the use of ozone. Some compounds are more resistant because of the molecular structure. That's why you need to use, we used only 2 milligrams per liter, very low amount. And we achieved that much. If you go to 2 or 3 or more, you'll be able to have 100% removal, and with the others as well. The other thing that ozone deals with is the cyanobacteria. The blue-green algae, and that's in every warm climate, blue-green algae produce toxins. The blue-green algae strain called the cyanobacteria. It produces 2 main toxins, neurotoxins, and this impacts the nervous system. It's very similar to cocaine. It's very similar to cocaine. It impacts the nervous system, and it's fatal. It kills people. And hepatitis, this is very similar to hepatitis C, and it's also fatal. And the study shows that ozone and ozone-based advanced oxidation processes are able to remove 100% of these compounds. Indoor air treatment, I think everybody is interested to hear that. The air treatment in ozone is not as widely known compared to the water, but people start to use it in the air conditioning system. The reason is you need to maintain a healthy climate all the time, 24 hours a day. This way you reduce the potential of having problems. And the use of the ozone in the air conditioning system started to become popular in big halls, airports, and that is an important thing because you deal with the problem from the source. And this is, if you have a house or a building, this is a very typical where the contaminants come from. From the washroom, the toilets, from the kitchen, from the fireplace, from many other places. The use of in airports, one of the examples is Dubai Airport, International Airport. They've been using it for years, and they implemented ozone in the air conditioning system, the HVAC. And they have more than 300 sensors, because why they put sensors? Because you need to know what is the concentration in different areas. And they have continuous circulation, and also different generators that they see the concentration is increasing. The monitor will shut down that generator in that area so you control it. And we do the same way at ozone generation in water treatment plant because the impact on human health is important. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has put a level of 0.05 as a no impact on human health. People can breathe it all the time. And in fact, if you have outside, when there's a thunderstorm, the concentration is even more. But they always, when agencies try to put a figure, they don't want to go to courts to defend if something goes wrong. So they put this level as a very conservative way. Back to the airport in Dubai, the passengers, after 1 year, they noticed, it's always clean, smooth. Even some people smoking, you don't smell the smoke. And that is one of the good things about ozone. Remove odor in the air and also kills the microorganisms. And they do that in the big halls in the United States. They have a place, they go for entertainment, and they stay 24 hours. So what they do, they put ozone, and it breaks into oxygen, so they keep the people more alert, so they stay longer and spend more money. And that is another thing they do in that business. The coronavirus, and this I think people start to be aware of that. We became very aware of that in Canada in 2003 when we had the outbreak. And people start running around, start to think, and we were telling them, it's a virus, it's not a problem, but we need to know how to deal with it. But you can't kill bacteria, you can't kill viruses. So the SARS virus is the same family of the coronas. The coronas has different strains. SARS is one of them, and now the MERS is another one. So each one has a different way of, or maybe they have very similar symptoms most of the time, but the strain is different, and how to deal with it may be slightly different when you do try to give medication to people. But when you're dealing with ozone doesn't recognize that. Basically oxidize it and kill it. And that's what some of the studies they did. They looked at bacteria. And when they found out that when they can kill 99.99% of bacteria, they get more than that in viruses. And that's a known fact scientifically. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. And we found that some of the viruses, even after ozonation, still can reduce that, because ozone stays a little bit. See, in the walls, when you put it, ozone goes around, not like when you put UV light. UV light, you have to be bacteria around the UV light. Ozone gas with the circulation goes around the room. It cleans the seats, the walls, and the air. So when you come back to the room, you have a clean area. And one of these studies they didn't seal the area, and there's air circulation coming. So they found that they only were able to change 93%, and which is good in a way, even 93% and unsealed. Because we always say, if you want to quarantine a room, you have to shut the air conditioning room, seal the doors in order to have it killed. Then, when it's done, it's easier to deal with it. You maintain a small level of ozone in the air, prevents the distribution and increase level of the viruses. Hospitals is always a problem. That's what many people, they said, if you're sick, don't go to the hospital. You're going to give more disease to people and you get something new. And that is, in fact, the worst part of hospital is the emergency section. But that's where people wait until they become very sick and they go there. So you're going to breathe when people cough and sneeze and all that. So that's why you need to look at how do you deal with that. And even in the laundry, they found some hospitals when they use ozone after they wash the laundry, because sometimes when even you wash the laundry, you might not be able to remove all bacteria or maybe other viruses. So they put in the final wash some ozone in order to kill that, in a very small amount. This case in Canada happened only last year. There was a hospital, they had 7 patient rooms in one ward. In a 14-room ward, it became infected with the MRSA, which is a methicillin-resistant staphylococcus aureus. Am I saying it right? Okay, I'm not a medical doctor, so I find difficulty sometimes to pronounce it. So this one is a very common problem that happens in hospitals, and usually it is a bacteria resistant to antibiotics commonly used. So that infection has been caused a problem. So when it occurred, the hospitals start to feel very serious about it, because these infections could cause a problem and could even cause death sometimes. And so the hospital acquired one of the processes, which is ozone, and a company came from California and made the setup there and guaranteed the rooms. And I'm taking here the quote exactly from the chief medical officer of the hospital. He said, on average, we have 1 or 2 a month, but then suddenly they have many cases in 7 rooms over a short period of time. So that's a concern. So that's why they start running around trying to find. So when they bought the ozone system, they found that they were able to achieve 100% of these MRSA, which because they wanted the 100% because they said even if you look at 0.1%, that could accumulate with time afterwards. So when you kill it completely, that's a good achievement. And also the elimination of the war, it was an impact was immediately. They did quarantine slightly over an hour, and then they shut it down and they let the ozone decomposes, because you're not supposed to go inside the room when there is this thing happening at this concentration, because this is over the 0.05. We're talking about 2-3 milligram per liters, up to 5 they were using. So they took 120 samples, swab samples, and they found a complete removal of these bacteria, inactivation of the bacteria. But they said, the appreciation came when they saw even 6 months after that they did not return. So basically, you kill the spores, you kill the basis of that, so it does not happen. Because if you leave a small amount, it will start to grow again. And that was a good thing they found. Ozone also could be used in sanitation and water. If you want to wash halls, or you wash places, bathrooms used pumped by the public. Because if you have big holes, and especially here, when people come to Hajj or Umrah, there are locations used heavily by a group of people. Somebody may be sick and all that. So you can sanitize it by water, which has ozone, and that will decompose, and you are disinfecting the whole thing. And there are portable units. And I think there are representatives from companies that you can talk to afterwards. They are here. They can give you a good example about these units. And this is a sample of this equipment. You move it around and you spray it. It's like when people, you see them when they spray a garden with a pesticide. This one is with ozonated water. And it is very simple and easy to use. Also, one of the things that we found, 10 years ago we got involved in a project. And this is, I think, will be of interest to the kingdom here because of the lack of fresh water here. In Canada, United States, unfortunately, in some locations, especially around the Great Lakes, people don't care about water because there's plenty of that. But still, it became a problem. Because the discharge into this fresh water started to become a problem. So 10 years ago, we worked with one of the greenhouses, and greenhouses, they built like a glass or a plastic house where they do the tomatoes or cucumbers or others. There, because temperature goes minus 20 degrees centigrade and stays for weeks, and it warms up maybe to minus 10, which is it's not healthy to use for any agriculture use. So, and that has become over $2 billion industry. So what we did a recycle. We have 110,000 liters a day, which is about 25,000 gallons a day. We built tanks and we put it back into the system, put fresh water, and we ozonate it, and we use it back into irrigation. And the system is working beautifully for the last 10 years. And the tomatoes are so healthy and stay longer. And this is a picture for that location. A very healthy product, and they can't keep up. In fact, the United States started to buy a lot. This one is Southern Ontario, here where we are. and become more popular, start people to look into that. So, in conclusion, these are some of examples of how can we improve the quality of life. Drinking water, wastewater, agriculture, hospitals. So, we call this as best management practices. How can we improve it to improve the quality of life for people? And maybe it's a good time to be proactive. So you prevent problems before it happens. By that, I end my talk and I welcome any questions.
I don't have enough information about the E-zone before, but now I'm a little bit confused. I know E-zone, it's a layer in the high level in the sky. You said it's heavier, it is on the ground, so this confuses me. I know E-zone, it's a molecule O3, but on which it is gas, it is solution, it's solid. How you mix it water? HO3, I don't know water, H2O. So you mix the molecule or you put it in solution shape. How it look like? Thank you.
To answer the first question, we make ozone. We make it on site. Basically, we bring oxygen or air and we put it into a generator which they have what they call dielectrics. And that's where we put the electric charge, and that will break the oxygen, and with the mix it becomes ozone afterwards. Then we inject it in the water as gas, and it dissolves in the water. And the thing is with ozone, you can't save it. And that is one of the advantages from safety, it breaks down to oxygen afterwards. So that is about that. So it is a gas, and it dissolves in water, and of course disperses in the air. The ozone is there because that's produced naturally. But we make it, I would say, it's a man-made. This one we do it industrially. We make it on the ground. And that's why you have to build it on site. You can't move it in bottles from one location to the other.
My question is HO3.
Yeah, it's O3. Yeah.
O3 is heavier than H2O.
Yes.
But we know it is in the higher space. Not if it's heavier, it should come to the ground.
Well, because of the gravity issues, and when you go to the outer space, it's not the pressure and all these situations different. Like that's why people float, because the pressure difference and all that. That's why you have that gas level here. When you come down here to the level of the Earth, you have different pressure and different gravity impacts. So because the molecular weight of ozone is 48, because 3 molecules, each one is 16, that's 48. Generally, the air is mainly oxygen, nitrogen, and it's lighter, so the ozone comes down. So when we build ducts to pull any ozone when there is a leak, we put the duct close to the ground, because when ozone leaks out, it pulls it out. And we have monitors that start the ducts automatically as well. That is when we say it's heavier. It's different from the one up there, because there it's a different, it's a God's will how it was built that way, because the outer space and all that.
العربي ممكن ترى الدكتور يجاوب بالعربي عشان نشجع الاخوان المقطع على المشاركه.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I would like to thank you. It's a fruitful lecture regarding the ozone, and I have several questions actually, very important for me. First of all, what is the remaining period time for ozone to be an oxygen?
In minutes.
Minutes.
Within an hour, ozone usually decomposes. And usually, as I say, we have a circulation. So, but if you put 20 milligram per liter, it does not decompose. يعني إذا حطينا 20 ملغرام التكسر الجزيئات أبطأ يكون لأنه كمية أكثر. كل ما يكون الكمية أقل التكسر بس خلال دقائق.
The ozone generator machine, which is the manufacturer for such machine, what is the precaution regarding the quality of that machine that may be harmful somehow if it comes from some kind of manufacturing deficiencies or defects?
حقولها بالعربي أو بالإنجليزي. There are different companies, of course. It's like companies building different products. So إذا الشركات تعمل في شركات تعمل نوعيات عالية وشركات أقل. فيبقى انه لما تسال حتى انه هذه تسال في مختصين في الاوزون، لذلك هذا اختصاص. يعني انا مثلا صار لي تقريبا اكثر من 20 سنه اشتغل بهذا الموضوع. ما انصح اكو شركات انا ما انصح الناس تتعامل معها. اي فلذلك انه من يجيك احد يريد يبيع لك اجهزه لازم اكو عندك شخص مختص تساله حتى بالاوزون. في شركات وفي يسأل انه مثل انا عندي كذا قضيه اللي تتعامل فيها. يسالنا الاتحاد العالمي للاوزون واحنا مستعدين نجاوبه، بس شنو عموما من تريد تصمم اجهزه، لان هذا مو مثل الاجهزه الصغيره هذا بحث اخر، بس بتيجي على الاجهزه الكبيره المعامل وهذه لازم اكو جهه مختصه اللي هم المستشارين حتى تتعامل وياهم، حتى هم هذول هم يتحملون المسؤوليه من يحطوا الاجهزه.
المقصود مش يعني نعم أجهزة غير سليمة أو تصنيع سيء أو غير موصى بها نترك what is the side effects on the human health.
هذه بالضبط مثل يعني هذه بصراحة ما تقدر تضبط كل العالم. بالصين احنا ما نعرف ايش يسوون بالصين اجهزة اشكال انواع تجينا، مو بس بالصين، في حتى في امريكا اكو شركات تسوي. يعني انا من اتصلوا بي مره انه قالوا فهذه استعملنا هذه، قلت لهم بصراحه انه قالوا هذا السعر كان رخيص، قلت لهم اكو مثل بالانجليزي get what you pay for، ايش قد ما انت تدفع تحصل. يعني مثل تشتري سياره خلينا نقول مصنوعه في كذا دوله او تروح تشتري مرسيدس يلا احسن. فاثنين يجوا نفس النتيجه يوصلوك الى منطقه، بس هاي السياره يوميا تعطل. اذا تاخذ سياره من الهند $2000 يسوون سيارات حاليا، بس هاي ايش قد راح تطول لك؟ فاذا تسال شخص مثلا يفهم بالسيارات راح يقول لك لا تمد ايدك على هاي الشركه. نفس الشيء بالنسبه للاوزون، اذا تسال الناس المختصين في الاوزون، الناس المعروفين، يعني مو كل واحد يقول انا اعرف بالاوزون، في لسته من الناس والشركات اللي تتعامل بالاوزون. واحنا موجودين الشركه العربيه السعوديه للاوزون تقدر تساعد الناس تخليكم تتواصلون مع الناس المختصين.
What is the influence of the insects?
هم insects؟ حشرات المنزليه طبعا يقتلها الاوزون. هي من اي حشرات يعني نقول؟ يعني انت من راح تحط 2-3 ملغرام او اكثر بالهواء، هاي الحشرات تتساقط.
السلام عليكم. Thank you. I have two questions. Basic of physical education, technical to human. I have clarification. This education is from technical point of view and education. Clarification. Mind?
بدون المايك.
طبعا النقطة الأولى the very basic information ozone is being generated physically and from electrical charge, right? Then on the transmission by electrical charge, the molecule of O2 combine with another O2
البريكس
O3.
تنكسر وتبقى واحدة من الذرات.
Right. Okay. The application and the impact of these physically, as you know, during the presence of a human being, my concern in terms of a free radical, which it might cause by this electrical charge and the transmission from O2 to O3 as a nuclear.
الالكتريك تشارج يكون في داخل الجهاز مو برا.
my
بس
concern.
كل شيء بالتركيز نرجع. ولذلك دا اقول الاف دي اي قالوا 0.05 مثل ما تاخذ حبايتين اسبرين لوجع الراس، بس اذا تاخذ العلبه كلها تموت. فهل معنى الاسبرين مضاد للصحه؟ لا، بس دائما في اي قضيه كيميائيه، انا كيميكال انجينير، اي قضيه كيميائيه التركيز قضيه مهمه بالتعامل. فلما تحط 50 ليش انا ما حطيت التيبل الكونسنتريشنز 50 بارت بير مليون، 50 بارت بير مليون لازم نحط جهاز التركيز العالي برا يعني في غرفه مغلقه وتجتمع ونقول ان هذا ممنوع انه واحد يوصل.
That's what it has to be very clarified, because we know if anything it might cause and become free radical, especially in the human being, as you know what you call the free radical impact in the molecular what you call of human being, since most of the human beings the composition is water and it might end by carcinogen.
اي بس هذه الفري راديكالز مثل ما قلنا الاوزون يتجزأ بسرعه وخلال ساعه يتجزأ الاوزون. فهذا اللي نقول عليه لازم انت تحصل الشخص في غرفه وتحط الاوزون. احنا نقول التعامل مع الاوزون لازم يكون عندك سنسرز. من في سنسرز يطفي الجهاز مباشره. فحتى ولازم الشخص يترك الغرفه.
So that's mean what you call, this is what you call equipment, it has to be like any equipment, and I'm sure what you call there is some restriction.
Of course.
Okay.
Okay. ولذلك هذا التيبل معتبر من قبل الحكومه الكنديه والحكومه الامريكيه كمان.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I have two questions. With regard to Corona, now from this presentation, I know that ozone is used as environment treating it for disinfection for germs and things like that. The first question is people who caught Corona. I came to know that ozone is being used in the medical treatment. So is there any research or there is any information with regard to utilization of ozones in treating people who has been infected by Corona?
I believe the next speaker has some information going to be, when he presents, going to be talking about that. Because this is, for Corona, example, the SARS, which is a coronavirus, they started in 2003. But with the medical, that's another thing. I don't know if you might be able to say about that.
I think I will bring up some subjects and I may be able to answer it.
I don't speak about the medical part because it's not my
prevention is something important, but people who go to Corona.
No, I know. لذلك احنا نقول انه you ask the specialist. Nobody is specialized in everything. If somebody say I'm specialized in everything, that's a lie. Engineers stick to engineering, and the doctors stick to the medical. And everybody respect everybody's opinion.
Okay, my second question quickly with regard to maintenance and energy saving. I came to know that utilization of ozones is used as saving in with regard to maintenance and some other chemicals that can be substituted by ozones, especially the water treatment plants and on the HVAC systems and other things like that. And energy saving. Really, I don't know. Do you have a record of how much is saving in
We have a study. We compared an operation of a water plant 1 year before implementing ozone and the next year after implementing ozone. And we went in defined details, electrical use, chemical use, and in fact, we did not include the labor use because it's less. Because reducing some of the chemicals and removing some of the chemicals reduced labor use. The paper was published, and it was published in fact 2004, and it was one of my master's students I was supervising. And كان التخفيض بالmaintenance والcost and chemicals $247,000 in 1 year.
I could also add, because I think I heard HVA systems and a closed loop system where partially is using ozone technology, you are able to save up to 25% of the energy cost.
One of the things also, because you don't develop a mold and inside the tubes, the ducts. This one they have to take it apart and clean it regularly. When you put ozone, the mold will not build inside the ducts, and that's a major cost in labor. Maintenance. Downtime as well.
السلام عليكم. أنا مهندس إقبال السراج المؤسسة العامة لتحقيق الأنواع المالحة. في عندي أنا فقط استفسار عن أثر الأوزون الأو3 في تحويل البروميد اللي موجود في الماء أصلا إلى برومات، وهي مادة يعني مسرطنة بالنسبة للكلى ولها آثار سلبية على الصحة.
أنا يعني سعيد إنه أنت سألت على هذا السؤال. البرومايد ايون اللي هو املاح نوع من الاملاح من الاوزون حامل وياه حسب تراكيز معينه راح يتكون البروميد. البروميد حسب منظمه الصحه العالميه والاي بي اي وكندا هيلث كندا 10 مايكرو جرام بير لتر الحد المحدد. اذا ليفل اقل من 50 مايكرو جرام بير لتر من البرومايد with controlled ozone، وانا say controlled ozone مو تحط 10 ملي جرام بير لتر بالمي ما تتوقع يصير بروميد، لا you meet the disinfection requirement. However, the bromide, especially when you have that, there are methods to reduce it. The addition of ammonia, small amount of ammonia, produce a chemical called bromamine. Bromamine is neutral, and that is many of the utilities in the United States. They do that مع الأوزون when they use ozone, and approved by the EPA. That is one way. The other thing about bromate, a study just finished last year. We were involved in it for over 7-8 years. And it shows the false claim about bromate as a carcinogen. The EPA, when they established the level, they injected potassium bromide in the blood of the lab animal. And bromate is supposed to be going to the stomach, not to the blood. يعني إذا تاخذ أسبرين، إذا حطوا لك الأسبرين بالدم يسبب لك غير مشاكل، ما يروح وجع الراس. So the study we looked at, and it cost over $500,000, and the International Ozone Association put more than $50,000, in fact about $70,000 into that. We found that when it's getting ingested, enzymes in the stomach neutralize the bromate in seconds. Bromates are gone. So that study has just been published in one of the medical journals. And the EPA is aware of that. So the EPA were thinking about reducing the level from 10 to 5. And of course, who's pushing for that? The chlorine lobby. This chlorine lobby is a $1 billion business in the United States. And والشخص اللي كان يشتغل فيها هو واحد من المختصين القاعد من الاي بي اي، كان هو مدير الابحاث وهو دار البحث هذا. وهذا البحث مثل ما قلت انه نشر في العام الماضي. فلذلك الاي بي اي وقفت العمليه انه تخفيض الليفل.
نكتفي بهذا القدر من الاسئله. اذا في سؤال اخر سؤال فقط.
معلش. السلام عليكم. اولا اشكرك استاذ عبد الحميد على هذه الفرصه المفيده بالنسبه لنا جميعا. سؤالي تحدثتم عن كورونا وكذا، تعاني جدة وبعض المناطق من بعض الفيروسات وربما نتيجة بعض إما حشرات إما أشياء معينة يمكن أنتم تعلموها أكثر. لماذا لا يكون هناك تعاون مباشر مع وزارة الصحة للقضاء على مثل هذه الفيروسات ومدى انتشاركم يعني في مناطق أخرى؟ أنا أخشى أن يكون التركيز على جدة مثلا على الرياض وكذا، ولكن في أماكن أخرى مهمة أنكم تتواجدوا فيها. وشكرا.
الشركة السعودية الأوزون حاليا تتصل بكل الجهات الرسمية ومن ضمنها وزارة الصحة بهذا الموضوع. واحنا يعني نأمل بشكل مباشر انه نتعامل ونعمل الابحاث، لانه احنا كيف وصلنا هذه النتائج بالمياه وغيرها؟ بالابحاث قدرنا نعرفها ونتفق بها. فاحنا مستعدين للتعامل مع كل ووجه الدعوات لكل الجهات الرسميه بهذا الامر.
وذكرت الطالب الكريم وانا ودي اشير نقطه اكثر. هو تقنيه الاوزون ربما لم تدخل نطاق الاستخدام والتطبيق الكامل في المملكه. احنا الان بنبحث استشراف استخدام هذه التقنيه في المجمعات الموارد البشريه وتحديد التركيز على المطارات من المطارات الموارد البشريه الكبيره يؤمها ملايين المستخدمين السنويين. فدير عام المطار المدني سوف يكون ان شاء الله في حلقه مع وزاره الصحه في حال نجاح تطبيق الاوزون بالمطارات. فبالتالي يعني سؤالكم محله، احنا ما زلنا في مرحله الاستشراف، ستظل في مرحله التقنيه التطبيق اذا كان ان شاء الله، ولكن ان شاء الله تكون النتائج يعني طيبه.
Now I will introduce the second speaker. He is Engineer Jan Elmer. He is civil senior engineer, expert in ozone technology, and chief executive officer in a big company. The title of his lecture, he will talk about how to use power of climate ozone in your company and improve the environment.
Dear audience, I'm very pleased and honored to visit the beautiful country of Saudi Arabia. I'm also honored to be invited here in this session, and I will try to send my big regards to the General Aviation Authorities, as well as Dr. Mr. Sami, who has been inviting us here for this event. My background is I'm a civil engineer in mechanics, so some of your doctors has to apologize that, but I had been a part of a number of researches during my 35 years in the field of ozone. And I can also mention that it is more than 20 years since I last visited the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I was a part of the build-up of the green belt in the central Saudi Arabia in Burayda, who designed a lot of the water systems in my early days of my career. And I'm very happy to see the country has developed so nice again. We will see if I can. Oh, we can see. Probably, if we had it there, I can. That would be fine. I just my slide presentation used to start with a bridge there. And why a bridge when it's ozone? It is a Scandinavian-built bridge, not as long as beautiful as the one you had to Bahrain, but still I think it's the second largest in the world now. And if you look very carefully in the center, just behind the vessel, you can see one segment is missing. And for ozone and to introduce the technology, I used to symbolize that segment will be you, because unless you bridge the competence to me, I'm not able to generate the design which is used in the samples there. So we need all the segments to fulfill our commissions there. And that's why I'm so honored and pleased to be here today. As I said, I'm a civil engineer. I've been studying at the University of Lund in Sweden, and I've been devoting many years to the ozone there, which I have been very interested in. And now, right the last months or years, I've been working with Professor Harsha in the University of Oslo, who's actually doing some tests with some of the diseases in the blood system, actually. And there I'm standing for, I think they have 10 PhD students working on different samples there, and it has been very encouraging. But I cannot publish too much about it right today, because it's still not finished. And I have also to send a big regards to the Copenhagen University, because they facilitate a lot of tests in the environment and the air treatment there. And as mentioned today, there are many specific items about ozone, but I would say also ozone is a fantastic treatment for many things, but it's also creating some kind of hazards there. So for instance, when you ozonize air, you're creating about 25% more particles, and especially in the range of nanoparticles. And the nanoparticles are actually passing in the lung system, and you can measure many of them within minutes in the bloodstream there. And there are things we have been taking in action too when we try to design the technology, which then later has been represented by a few companies now. Professor Henrik Andersson in EPU is also one of the universities in Denmark, and he's working on water resources. There I've been a guide to do effluent treatment of different kinds and look into it for a couple of years now. So I will continue with that. What is ozone? It's been mentioned many times now today that it is a molecule with 3 oxygen atoms built into it, and it's done. It can be done in different ways there. It's been done when the summer is coming, and by the hot temperature there is creating ozone, as we can smell as a pleasant gas at that moment there. But the number one, it is a poisonous gas there. And in one of the leading European gas handbooks, it says it's a lethal gas. And it is honestly when it's in high concentration there. It is actually more lethal than was used to the Jews during the Second World War. But in the same side, a bit further down on the side, it says it's a worker-friendly gas. How can you have two such big contradictions in one side there? And that is exactly what we say. This gas there is normally used in very low concentrations, and compared to many other gases, you can smell it, you can feel it way before it's lethal, or way before it do any harm to the body there. So knowing that it's the electrical company, the major in Europe, Aon, who is supplying us with electric energy, said, John, the ozone gas is really interesting because it's almost the same as when we introduced electricity 100 years ago. People were scared of it, said, can we have electrical cords going over the streets here? What about if they're falling down there? We have about the same thing right today with ozone, because it's coming in a lot of different things in our environment. It's unknown, it's not visible. 0.5 ppm, that means that you have to calculate 2 minutes. But the real threats are the encapsulated organism, which is the cryptosporidium, let's say. And you can see it needs 20 times more ozone there to do the same job there. So depending on what we say, if they say we want to treat water, I can treat water with the first level, the higher level there. That I may not do what the customer wants because he was afraid of the cryptosporidium. And then we have to be at a much higher concentration or a longer exposure time. I had the honor to be down in Ethiopia and did a water factory half a year ago there, and they are battling water there. And again, they take it this way, groundwater, but again, to secure both the washing and the battling there, they use for the rinse ozonized water. And same thing can be used, as I did mention, everywhere from laundries, cooling towers, disinfection, because cooling towers is also a threat by the Legionella disease. When you have hot temperatures, that bacteria can be spread over the air to the surrounding neighborhood. And instead of using the chlorine, this is a very valid method there, because chlorine will be collected in nature, and whereby we have the benefit with ozone where it converts to oxygen and it's not harmful. And when we're speaking about an ozone generator, most of you are thinking about a small unit, but it's a whole series of systems which can work together. And that's why I was speaking about the cowboys that you cannot just go out and buy the generator. You have to look into the whole system so it's working and cooperating with you. And the small generators consist of the compressor, air dryer, high voltage systems, and they can in themselves should be studied because there can be threats, they can be disturbing your radio system, so you are complying with the different regulations there. Because we are normally working between 2.5 kilovolt to 10,000 kilovolt on most of the generators there. And when you are at the higher range and perhaps also high frequency, you have to make sure that you don't interfere with systems around you. And other complete knowledge part there is, as you mentioned, that this is a gas we are generating all the time. And how do we get it into the water there in many places there? There are different technologies. Mainly the easiest, if you have an aquarium at home, you use a small ceramic stone and let it bubble there. But again, studies that shows, should you do that efficiently and not sending out ozone gas, you need to have a water table of 4 meters above that bubble stone there to make it somewhat efficient there. So again, if you do it the easy way there, you may totally send it out to the environment there. So again, it needs its technology. And the finer the bubbles are, the gas bubbles, which is being going into the water, the larger total surface to the water you have, and the more you can transmit there. So there you have the bubble stones, but you have also the injectors. The injectors are excellent, I would say, if you are at the optimum level. But again there, what is optimum level? For you it's almost impossible to know. For the scientist, that means that you have to have a very small amount of ozone to a large flow of water there. Then you can dissolve 99.9%. It's wonderful, which it says in the leaflet. But many times that's not reality, because you need a lot of gas in the water to be able to cure your cryptosporidium or other things there. I have been very much encouraged by the membrane technology. The beauty with that technology is that you can actually transfer the gas in the molecule form directly into the water without going to the bubbles. Then you have avoided. There are some samples that are still too expensive for the normal use there. But I can see that technology is rapidly being developed. And especially when it comes, because many times it's not only the ozone you want into the water, it's the oxygen. And then the technology is already coming more upon. And thanks to your fellow in Canada, I would say, they're leading that technology, and there are coming some very, very interesting parts there. So there we can see new methods coming in to make this total system work better for us. Here's the practical example. This was done about 5 years ago. I came up to a salmon producer in Norway. It was a total mess in the system there. We convinced the owner that you are calling every 4 months and saying that the generator is not working, the system is down there. And many times it starts with the design of the system, and that's what I want to convey to you. Try to go with good established company. At that case there, we were going in, we replaced all the units there, we built it up, we made scheme of the system there, and the system suddenly started to work. He was happy, he was getting his growth of the fishes there, and it's proceeding the right way. Now I take a big jump. This was another, and it's more for the port authorities. I built up some years ago a system for treating ballast water, and it was done on one of the largest container vessels on Earth. It was actually sailing from South Carolina to Europe. And we did carry out some kill tests there on the ballast water. And we can see the ozone is clearly doing a lot of possibilities for treating the ballast water. There were some challenges though. One was corrosion. What happens if we use such a strong oxidant in the ballast tanks? Will we have a hole in the bottom there? And we did carry out with Norsk Veritas, one of the leading companies for certifying. And we could see ozone in the water there was giving an even corrosion, but the spot corrosion in the tanks had disappeared totally. So we had actually a slower total corrosion on the tanks there than it was previously. So expectations from before that we should corrode the ship in months, basically, was totally faded away there. And again, trials could show that. So trials are always important.
Excuse me, 5 minutes remaining.
So,
For the 30 minutes, 5 minutes remaining.
yeah. And you asked the degradation of ozone. I would say in air, 20 degrees temperature, we have the rule of the sun. The half time is 20 minutes. In water, it's about 5 minutes. So, and they are rather valid. I've seen it over and over again there. So just to give you some facts. So as said, many times in 1 hour, it's down to the background level of ozone again. We have been supplying over 100 of those ultra ships, as I mentioned you before. They do both the water treatment, they do the effluent treatment, and now they also want to do the exhaust from the chimney of the engine there, because, but it's another issue there, which is quite interesting. A lot of leaches around the world there, it's garbage depots where we're depositing our daily use there. That effluent water or slowly drains down to the ground, and we will find trace residues, both from our automotive industries, from the cars, from whatever we are using is coming down, and we can find it today in most of the wells there. So an effective cleaning process around those garbage depots is very essential, I would say, for the future. And that's about the same. Now over to the air. And again, air is much to fight the bacteria, the viruses we have all around us. Many are healthy, but there are, due to the air conditioning systems, Pseudomonas, other bacteria which is growing in the environment we are creating there. And to defend that, today ozone has become quite viable, because we can see that with using ozone today, it has been more cost efficient, so we can get it into, if we have the high cost here, it's moving from the high cost down to the possibility to use it in the everyday use, I would say. HVA systems are the same thing. They're wonderful to have, they make the life much easier for us, but they're also creating some threats to us there. And there I had the pleasure in Copenhagen University to be a part of the build-up of the system, where we try to take the whole situation into consideration there. Because as Professor Matthew said, John, when you do ozonize a lot of that, you're creating a cocktail of a lot of components, nanoparticles and other things we have to be observant on. Same with room disinfectant. There may be some gases in the room before, because nitrogen and other things there. And what we did there was creating a small unit which can be moved from one room to another, and you can place it there. Actually, it's equipped with an iPad or an Android. You take it out, you connect it to power, and it's actually disinfecting the room in about 1 hour's time there. I think I have a shot. And many of you have asked, how does the cycle work? First of all, ozone in absolutely dry air is not a good bacterial and viral killer. There needs to be humidity there. If the humidity isn't in the room there, it doesn't do its job there. So again, back to what was doing originally the ducting system. The humidity is creating the bacteria, but also for using the ozone as efficient, you need the humidity there. So when we go into the room, we always check what about the humidity. If the humidity isn't enough, we have to elevate that to the right level. And when we have built it up to the right level, we start then the disinfection cycle. And just as important, now we fill the room with perhaps 10 to 15 ppm of ozone, which is an unhealthy level of ozone there. So we need to decontaminate the air after. And that we do in the phase number 4 there, where we can then, by catalytic converter, take down the ozone level again. And not only the ozone level, because now we know we have created 25% more of the nanoparticles in the room there. So we need to go after with either a scrubber in the larger system or an electrostatic participator to take away those hazards as well now. And typically, in the whole room decontamination, the machine can go in there, it does its job there, while used then safely outside and control the machine. And it's also able to send you a report after, if you're in hospital. They'll say, My nurse is number 52 was certified to do it. The machine knows, she puts her tag in front of it, it reads her, she is validated to press the green button, the machine starts them. If it has overhauled the curve, it sends back a receipt to the hospital management, and you know, this machine did its job. We were at the safe level, which we had documented, is doing the job for the bacteria and the treatment. Here. And same can be used. I mean, garbage room is creating a lot of bacteria, viruses and things that we use frequently. But there we have said we make compromises. We let the ozone in the room there. Because normally in the garbage room, you may go in, place a bag there and go back. So normally there we say we do try to be around 0.1 ppm, which is the 8-hour level there. And the exposure time to any human is so short. So there we had we say we had a small compromise. But we have also others of the fires, tobacco smoke, sewage pump stations, food industries, restaurant kitchens. So there is a number there. A lot of the kitchen today need high hygienic levels. So we have been installing some modern sites there, a system during night which dries up the ozone concentration and the humidity to a known level for us to do the kill there over 1 hour. Then we go in and do the decontamination there. But there are also grease in the system for the ducting and things building up, which can give a fire hazard. So there we frequently use the ozone to inject right after the cooking areas, take away the smell, keep the ducting nice and clean there. And there we have well over 1,000 systems totally in Europe today working with happy clients. This is a bit in, there we wanted to address the airport. And the picture comes up then. I was not part of this, I was ordering the picture, but we will see if we get it up here. No? Okay. We have been able to get up for, can you help me, because I think it's a rather important picture, that one I would like to say. It's been, thank you, yes. I will try to shorten it down, so I take this as my last picture then, that is rather important for you to convey that. On airports and larger installations where you have a lot of organs coming there, which is unknown about the conditions there, I think it's very important to build a system which takes care of the total gas system. And that system is on the roof. We don't only treat the air, because we circulate the air through the room there. We are able to decontaminate the air through UV radiation as phase number 1. Then we're creating extra particles as well there. Then after that one, we use a water scrubber. And in that water scrubber, we are removing 99% of all the particles there. Then again, in the water, we add ozone again to try to do a second phase there. And then we are finally using an electrostatic precipitation, so we can remove the last particles there, and we can provide the clients in the lounge with fresh, healthy air there in it. And that has then been observed over 2 years from the University of Copenhagen atmospheric researchers, where they've given us a certificate of excellence. I should end up with a road sign. I leave that picture right now, because you are my road sign, you are my resources to give my big challenge in life to try to continue to develop our system in close cooperation with the universities. Once again, thank you everybody for your time of listening to me. I said, my result has been guiding me to go towards the belt around 20 kilohertz there. And I see frequently generators which is just plug in and go on 50 kilohertz there. And I've seen everything in between there. I've even seen some machines over there. And there must be reasons for it. So I would say there is a wide range you can do there. I found out that it's very interesting to be around 20 kilohertz. Number one, it doesn't give annoying sound for anybody there.
Also have, are you done? One more picture.
I do appreciate if I can have this presentation and you send me some more technical data about.
Absolutely, I will be more than happy to do that to anyone who wants.
Yeah, I have really a question for Jonah. First, I'd like to thank you. It's a very informative presentation. And I was listening to you very carefully when you cited the experience of applying ozone on aircraft and Boeing flight. And yet I didn't really get to know what's the conclusive result with Boeing company, whether or not they have proceeded to do that ozone technology in purifying aircraft cabins and interiors or not. So, but that's really not the side of the question. The core of the question is, have you recorded any experience or application trials in any one of the densely populated areas like airport? Have you remember any trial or any studies that have been applied toward places like airport and malls and with air purification?
I hope that I will be pleased to send to any one of you. The last picture should actually show such a system called the Climatic, which we do install, and that is the integrated system, not only ozonizing, it's with the water scrubber, with electrostatic precipitator, and there we have been doing trials in Copenhagen Airport for some time. They have still not within their budget, but they have seen the efficiency of it. And not to complain about anything, but sometimes we see the Russian aircraft coming up in the morning starting there, and it's really annoying in the terminals because they can feel, they can smell, and they've detected a lot of the particles. And there are of course particles from also the latest modern aircrafts there, and they want to have a state-of-the-art air conditioning system to provide to their guests of the airport. So I'm sure within a year or so we see the first contract there. The same thing right today has actually been, because this is a novel technology. It was developed in the university over the last 2 years there. So it's right now being implemented there. We are looking at some special installations for Saudi Arabia to go with the full system there. But we also have got it already installed in really waste or terrible conditions in our country there. So we have, for instance, an oil refinery who's sending out the gas there, who were threatened to be closed down because of the environmental issues there. It was annoying the whole neighborhood. Today, when that system is installed, there are no complaints whatsoever. You can even stand 2 meters from the exhaust and you can't smell it any longer there. We can see it's a highly efficient system which will have a very much impact on a better world, I would say. The Boeing trial, they did go with a compromise because they found a filter which was bacterial killing, so they used that for weight reasons. But the general manager of the Chrysler still has got his ozone generator on board, the 737 there. So top of the line equipment for private aircraft is being offered still for some years now.
I have a question regarding medical question. You mentioned that. Do you have any medical application for ozone? For example, right now there is a coronavirus. It is a new strain, very various, very strong, and so on. It's mainly used when the people they are affected, but then they get recovered. But some people they have respiratory failure. It is the part of the lung that inhales. And then it's mentioned that if you use ozone, since its durability is high, it could go through soft tissue. They could inhale it. Is there any study in that field mentioned the effect of ozone to recover early and soon and fast?
Yes, what we are doing when we are working, we don't want to expose the human for the ozone. So first of all, we try in all cases to stop to make a barrier between the treatment of the air and the exposure there. That's why we're using the catalytic system there. The catalytic system is taking back the ozone at all time back to normal oxygen again. So we know we are beyond the normal, so we never expose somebody to 1 ppm or half a ppm there. We make sure that our detectors will stay beneath the 0.1 ppm there. Again, we know it's very efficient to the coronavirus. There's been enough tests doing that. I am not personally I don't have a we call it, I think, a lab number 3 classified there, so we cannot go into those tests. But we have done it on virus tests there. We have it confirmed and written that it does it killing there. We do it more on the spores instead, because they were on the bottom there. They are the one which is most difficult to kill in the whole series there. And there we have done a lot of tests in medical institutions to see that the system is doing what it ought to do there. But again, ozone and humidity are 2 components which is vital there for doing the achievements. You cannot just throw in any generator in a sterilized room with low humidity levels, and you can expect it to do the job there.
One question, please, John, here. This is a poison gas, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And if it is used in airports, in hospitals, in schools,
yes,
what happens to the environment if they all use the same ozone gas?
Your question is very, very valid, and that's why I say, from my years of research, we have banned to use the ozone in excessive amount in any facilities. That we always, when we sell a system, is having a destruction unit, monitors after, to make sure we are not exceeding the exposure level from the outside there. So I would say it's a fantastic tool to use, but don't let the cowboys do it and do the easy way there. I give the example of buying a car without an engine there and try to fit it yourself there. It's exactly the same with ozone. Make sure that you have a good reputable company behind you who's not only selling a generator, who's selling the system to you.
That is in fact when I mentioned in my presentation about Dubai Airport. They have 300 sensor monitors. So they monitor the concentration. It doesn't go more than the limit. And these sensors connected to the generators, they shut down the generators and they start a higher circulation to pull ozone out. And that is a common practice in any proper design system.
When you say pull it out, where it goes?
It goes to a destruct unit. Basically, this is a unit has a catalyst, change the ozone into oxygen, and push it to the air. The amount goes to the air is monitored at not more than 0.05 as well. Yes.
There is a report says that there is a toxicity in some Arabic cities, like Dubai, like Beirut.
There is a toxicity by ozone because of the ultraviolet solar flares. What is the combined between both information which give an impact on the human being, some medical impact against it?
Well, most of the time they refer to, like the city of Hunza where I live, get that alert as well. That is related to the combination, not just ozone, but with the emission from cars as well. The combination of hydrocarbon with the ozone. And that is what but for simplicity they call it the ozone level is that. It's not just ozone. Like we monitor things. And it's the hydrocarbons, that's why you don't see this thing happen, even if it's a very hot area. If it doesn't have the heavy traffic, that doesn't happen. So that is what the thing is. Many times the media put some information is not very accurate about that. You see like cities, like big cities like New York and all that, when they announce that is when you have a heavy traffic, high temperature, humidity, and ozone could be produced as well from some of the, because when you have ignitions and all that, that could generate ozone.
Can I ask one more question? Regarding this is a safety precaution that you put sensors, this will detect if the level is increased to the optimum level. Do you think that this is the only safety is enough for such case? I mean that we need more safety.
No, the sensor it gives a signal for another action to happen.
I know.
So you shut the generator, and there are ducts start to pull the ozone.
I know the theory, but just in case if any sensor is out of function, what will happen?
What happened? Sorry.
If the sensor is effective.
Well, the thing is, like there are, the people when they have the monitors, it's a continuous monitoring. People come and test them all the time. So, and people who do that, they have their own monitors. They can put it on their belt, and it gives a signal immediately.
So continuous monitoring for all these sensors?
Yes. Like it's also on computer. If the sensor doesn't work, the signal comes on the computer. When you see a line coming straight line, you know this is not true. So a technician will go and check that. Like we have that in plants and all that.
And this is the last question. No further question. The next 30 minutes will be for press conference.
Let me, at the end of the two presentations وبنهاية المحاضرتين اللي سمعناها من الخبراء الدكتور سعد جاسم وستين جون، نشكرهم حقيقة شكرا جزيلا على هذا الإفراغ المعرفي والمعلومات القيمة التي قدمت لنا والتي استمعنا إليها في مجال الأوزون، تطبيقات الأوزون والأبحاث التي عملت في مختلف مناطق العالم، والتطبيقات التي تمت في بعض جوانب مناحي الحياة سواء في المجمعات الصناعية أو المجمعات البشرية أو في مواقع المياه والمزارع ومناطق الاستخدام. الحقيقة ودي أتكلم بدقائق بسيطة للتوضيح أن الندوة هذه هدفها الأساسي هو تسليط الضوء على تجربة علمية ذات استخدامات وتطبيقات نافعة وتم الاستفادة منها في بعض المناطق وفي بعض التطبيقات، ولكن في نفس الوقت لا نستطيع أن نجزم تماما بأن استخدام الأوزون ربما إذا نفع في منطقة ينفع في منطقة أخرى، أو إذا استخدم في مراكز ممكن يكون نفس النتائج. فبالتالي لازلنا ومن خلال ما سمعنا نجزم بأن استخدام الأوزون بما هو فعلا آلية نافعة، لكن لا زالت يشوبها بعض المحاذير، يشوبها بعض المخاطر التي تحتاج إلى مزيد من التركيز ومزيد من العناية، لأن في الأخير نهدف إلى صون والحفاظ على صحة الإنسان. خصوصا أنا أتكلم عن المطارات، مطار الملك عبد العزيز مطار زي مطارنا يستخدموا أكثر من 28 مليون مسافر في السنة. أنا متأكد جدا أن الهيئة العامة للطيران المدني لن تخطو خطوة واحدة إلى الأمام إلا بعد دراسة مستفيضة وأبحاث وتجارب تؤكد فعلا سلامة استخدام الأوزون وفعاليته ونجاعه في تنقية الأجواء والحفاظ على السلامة والحفاظ على مستوى بيئي وصحي وفق المعايير الصحية والدولية. أيضا نعلم جميعا أنه في المملكة العربية السعودية الجهة المختصة بالشؤون الصحية هي وزارة الصحة، ولذلك أحب أؤكد على حقيقة أن الهيئة العامة للطيران المدني مطار الملك عبد العزيز أحد المطارات الكبيرة أو أكبر المطارات في هذه المنظومة، سيكون على اتصال علاقة وثيقة تعاونية جدا مع وزارة الصحة قبل أن نمضي أو نتقدم أي خطوة في هذا الشأن. أعتقد أنه ندوة اليوم كانت فرصة مواتية وجيدة جدا أن استفدنا إلى إثراء علمي في هذا المجال، وسع بعض المدارك لدينا في التطبيقات وتجارب الدول الأخرى وتجارب القطاعات الصناعية والتنموية في بلدان أخرى. الحقيقة احنا يعني الوقت يمكن يمضي سريع، احنا بالساعة 12 لابد ان ننهي حتى يكون هناك في بريك وبعد ذلك نواصل البرنامج. فعندنا تقريبا 15 دقيقة للإخوة الصحفيين والإعلاميين إذا أرادوا أن يطرحوا بعض الأسئلة على الخبراء الموجودين أو على إدارة المبارك عبد العزيز.
عبد الله المنصوري من عكاظ. واسال عن خطة المطار لمواجهة كورونا المستقبلية. ما في ونسأل عن خطة المطار لمواجهة كورونا المستقبلية.
مثل ما أشرت، المطار على اتصال وثيق بالجهة الصحية في المنطقة، المسؤولية في الإجراءات الوقائية والصحية في المطار هي من اختصاص مراكز الرعاية الصحية التابعة لوزارة الصحة. الهيئة الطيران المدني وإدارة المطار لا تملك الحق تطبيق أي إجراءات على الركاب والمسافرين في مجال الصحة، ولكن نطبق التوصيات التي وردتنا من وزارة الصحة. حتى هذه اللحظة معظم التوصيات هي توصيات وقائية تهدف إلى منع الإصابة بفيروس كورونا عبر اتباع الإرشادات الصحية، استخدام الأوقية، الكمامات للعاملين. هناك إجراءات توعوية تقوم بها وزارة الصحة في المطار، على سبيل المثال توزيع المنشورات، البرامج التوعوية، الندوات التي عقدت والتي تنظمها وزارة الصحة في المطار. هذه في جملتها تقريبا إجراءات وقائية، ولكن على أرض الواقع لا يوجد إجراءات طبية بمعنى إجراءات طبية كما كنا نفعل مع الأمراض الأخرى التي مرت حمى الخنازير والأوبئة الأخرى والأمراض الأخرى. بفضل الله عز وجل أيضا لم تسجل أي حالة في مطار الملك عبد العزيز أو في أي مطار من مطارات المملكة، وهذا من فضل الله عز وجل. هذا تقريبا يعني الإجابة على السؤال.
السلام عليكم. عبد العزيز العمري من جريدة اليوم. هل يوجد في المطار أجهزة لكشف حرارة جسم القادم من خارج المملكة؟ السؤال الثاني، الآن بدأ موسم الصيف وبدأت حركة الركاب القادمين والمغادرين في ازدياد. هل في إجراءات احترازية تقوم فيها إدارة المطار في الصيف بغض النظر عن التوجيهات التي تأتيهم من وزارة الصحة، تقوم فيها إدارة المطار قبلكم؟ شكرا.
يعني أعتقد ربما الإجابة اللي ذكرتها يعني تتطرق أو تغطي في بعض التساؤل اللي عندك بخصوص الأجهزة الصحية لكشف حالات الإصابة بالمرض. نعم، وزارة الصحة لديها الأجهزة الحرارية، مراكز الصحة في المطار متوفر لديها، ولكن مرة أخرى أؤكد على أنه إدارة المطار ليست هي الجهة التي تتخذ هذه الإجراءات ولا تضعها موضع التنفيذ، هي وزارة الصحة والجهات المختصة. احنا جهة إشرافية ورقابية على التشغيل وإدارة المطار، تعمل جنبا إلى جنب مع فرع وزارة الصحة والمديرية العامة للشؤون الصحية في منطقة مكة لتطبيق التوصيات التي أشرت إليها.
الآن توزيع الدور والهدايا عن المشاركين يتفضل به سعادة مدير المطار الدولي.
أستاذ الدكتور سعد يونس جاسم، مستشار الدولي لتقنيات الأوزون. Engineer Rian Lemar, specialist and engineer in ozone technology. دكتور حسان نقادي، مدير الخدمات الطبية بمطار الملك عبد العزيز. المهندس شادي الصباغ. الطيران المدني. المهندس غازي العتيبي من الهيئة الملكية للجبيل يومبر نيابة عن المهندس عدنان الغامدي.